Hello everyone, good to be back on the channel. How are you? I'm encountering people more and more often that are looking for more purpose and direction in life. Also people finding it increasingly difficult maintaining personal relations. In the meantime, we all see that the world is getting increasingly more unsafe and throws us back to basic needs. And whilst looking for more meaning in life, in these times of immense change and global uncertainty, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or even reactive. Therefore, it's good to know, and hopefully you will also experience in this session, that Kabbalah offers a profound, time-tested approach for cultivating stability, even in the midst of all this turmoil. From a Kabbalistic perspective, we say that what is happening now, both on a personal and or global level, are signs of growth and development, and that this is a positive thing. When Kabbalists speak about growth, they mean developing more awareness about what and why things are happening with and to us. Only the way how we come to more awareness is what troubled me lately, and I think so should you. So, how much emptiness or meaninglessness or hatred and separation needs to be revealed with all their consequences before we understand that everything points to a certain conclusion? Because, let's be honest, we all know that we should be more forgiving to each other, that we should exploit the world less, make less war, fight less. But somehow we always end up in these destructive situations. In today's chaos of events and feelings, it's so easy to get lost in direction. And therefore we can actually be very happy that we have the wisdom of Kabbalah, and that when we open ourselves up to it, this wisdom will be as a powerful beacon of direction, of development, for each one of us and for all of us together. This is what this Kabbalah Explained Simply is about, to connect to the wisdom in such a way that we gain an understanding and hopefully feeling that what Kabbalah is trying to convey to us is at the root cause of everything that's happening with us and what is happening in this world. And that there is a reason for confidence and faith the moment when we start connecting with and through this wisdom. And whether the war you experience is more on the outside or on your inside, Kabbalists explain very precise and clearly that there is a bigger plan to all of it. And when we align ourselves with this plan, everything becomes simpler and more harmonious. My name is Anne Pier. Please come in and find out about this plan. Most probably, we have different viewers right now. I mean, those that are curious about Kabbalah and perhaps here for the first time, and those that are already acquainted with the wisdom, perhaps studying it for years already. In Kabbalah, we call the ones that accompany us in the study friends. Therefore, I prefer to refer to all of you as friends, okay? So, about being here, now live, or when you check out this video later, understand that this video has very important information for you. You will change your life for the better, I'm sure. And even after this session, if you don't completely understand or know how to implement it, seeds of more awareness and understanding will be planted in you. And I understand I've put the bar quite high now, but I stand by my words, I have confidence. So, before we start, I want to say some remarks about the operation of this live stream. During this session, I have different tools at my disposal to convey knowledge of Kabbalah, and at the same time, and this is very important, to create an environment where we can experience together the deeper understandings of this wisdom. For this purpose, we will read authentic texts from Kabbalists, And I've also prepared some videos. The fact that the wisdom is ancient and truthful doesn't mean it can't be entertaining too, right? I also will use an old school drawing board to explain some principles. I'll show it to you. Let's see where we have it. Okay, here it is. So you see, I can draw for you and probably also use it for the sake of answering your questions. Talking about these questions, they are actually very important. Your questions are a manifestation of partaking and our connection in this session. So I've prepared a special box for your questions so we can see them and it's clear for everyone. Let's see if it comes up. So here we have, okay. So if you have a question, put it in the chat. The friends from support put it in this document and we can see it on the broadcast. It would be great if you put your name to your question and where you're at in the world right now. It gives us a sense of connection, right? Okay. So, are we ready? Okay, let's start then. So, you often hear me prefer to speak about the Kabbalah as a wisdom. But we should bear in mind that Kabbalah is actually a very practical method. A method that is based on experience. Therefore, Kabbalists say, none as wise as the experienced. Actually, in that perspective, it looks very much on science, where by experimenting and falsifying and reproducing results, certain truths can be determined. Kabbalah isn't different in that perspective. We follow the advices from Kabbalists that attained certain spiritual awareness, follow their instructions, and find out for ourselves what is true. Kabbalah, therefore, isn't about belief, but accepting the advice as something to research with an open mind. Meaning, the advices from Kabbalists not to believe blindly, but to take them with a question mark and to research it. To repeat the experiment they did yourself, as to say. In this context, I'll try to make this live stream as experiential as possible. Okay? Let's start with what you could call a Kabbalistic experiment. In a minute, we will read a very special poem from the great Kabbalist named Isaac Luria, also called the Ari. And I learned from my teacher, Rav Dr. Michael Leitman, that the Ari, who lived in the 16th century, is a great soul which descended into our world in order to open the gates of wisdom for us, making Kabbalah more approachable for anyone who feels the need to study it. Therefore, as Baal Salam writes, from the time of the Ari and onward, everything depends on a person. He has to correct himself and thereby reveal the Creator and to come to the adhesion with him and achieve the purpose of creation. In times before the Ari, this door was closed altogether because the souls were not yet ready. They still needed to undergo a certain path of development and to mingle together. From the Ari's time forward, the science of Kabbalah began to acquire the form of a method of correction. Before then, it was intended only for a chosen few and was presented in a special form. Therefore, the Ari has a unique place in the lineage of true Kabbalists, bringing this wisdom to our world. Okay, now we will listen and connect to this poem from the Ari I just mentioned. We will do it by watching a clip, and obviously the clip I'll show you isn't from the Ari. I made it and everything is therein for a reason. Night and day, the light from above, the ripening of fruit, and the Kabbalistic music that accompanies it. All you need to know now, in this moment, is that the words in this poem come from a very high Kabbalist, a high soul, and that even today, above our understanding and perception, his acquired wisdom of the upper world still passes on to us. In order to pick up on this, think about how much we are in need for help to change our reality, to change ourselves. Just try to open your heart and surrender for whatever can be conveyed. Perhaps the poem confuses you or raises questions. Don't let it bother you. Just let the words of the Kabbalist enter you. Okay? I will read the poem, and if you want, you can read the words from the screen. Okay? So. Let's listen to the words of the Ari. Behold, that before the emanations were emanated and the creatures were created, the upper simple light had filled the whole existence. And there was no vacancy, such as in empty air, a hollow, but all was filled with that simple, boundless light. And there was no such part as head or end, but everything was one simple light, balanced evenly and equally, and it was called the light of Ein Sof, infinity. And when upon his simple will came the desire to create the worlds, emanate the emanations, to bring to light the perfection of his deeds, his names, his appellations, which was the cause of the creation of the worlds. Then the Ein Sof restricted himself in his middle point, precisely at the center, and he restricted that light and drew far off to the sides around that middle point. And there remained an empty space, an empty air, a vacuum, precisely from the middle point. And that restriction was equally around that empty middle point, so that the space was evenly circled around it. And after the restriction, when the vacant space remained empty, precisely in the middle of the light of Ein Sof, a place was formed where the emanations, creations, formations and actions might reside. Then, from the light of Ein Sof, a single line hung down from above, lowered into that space, and through that line he emanated, created, formed and made all the worlds. Prior to these four worlds, there was one light of Ein Sof, whose name is One, in wondrous, hidden unity. And even in the angels closest to him, there is no force and no attainment in the Ein Sof, as there is no mind ever created that could attain him, for he has no place, no boundary, no name. Okay, I spoke about an experiment, right? And to complete this, we will read the poem again at the end of this session, and then you could say, measure the difference inside of you. Let's leave it for now. Let's develop a bit further. Before we continue revealing some basic principles from the Kabbalah, we first need to define more precise where we are. Well, if I look around, I see a lot of things. But I think one of the common denominators in our perception is that we live on planet Earth, right? And that the planet is part of nature. or perhaps it is nature. Perhaps you all know these video clips that compress the Earth's 4.5 billion year history into a single 24-hour day, right? So then the clock or the video starts at midnight, and then the development of our planet would start from stellar dust, beginning as a hot, molten and inhospitable world. Already in the scale of 24 hours, after 5 minutes, the moon would appear. The moon was created through a big collision of an object with the Earth, can you imagine? And then it takes almost 4 hours from the 24 hours before the first primitive microbial life emerges in the oceans. So let's go a bit fast forward now, because this is not a lesson about geography. We all know about the extinction of the dinosaurs, right? About 65 million years ago, which actually allowed mammals to become more dominant. This occurs on the 24-hour scales at 11 p.m., so 1 hour before the whole 24-hour passes. And human history starts like 2 minutes before the 24-hour ends. And civilization, as we know today, all recorded human history and modern civilization occurs in the very last split second. The aforementioned illustrates the development of nature and all that is in it into a wide variety of minerals, plants, animals, and us, humans. And the world, it appears to us as is. And we feel some importance to preserve it, because it sustains our livelihood, like oxygen and food and also space to live. But generally we don't go further than that in our thinking. Most of the times we use the earth for our own pleasure and comfort. It's for us to take, right? Kabbalists for sure agree with the corporeal dependence and necessity, but they add a lot of wisdom and understanding about the spiritual meaning and spiritual goal for our planet. Baal Salam writes in his article, The Peace, he writes about the world. He says, the store is open. This means that this world seems to us like an open shop without an owner, and anyone who passes through may receive abundantly, as much as one wishes, free of any charge. However, Rabbi Akiva, a great Kabbalist of the 2nd century, warns us that the shopkeeper is selling by deferred payment. In other words, although you cannot see any shopkeeper here, know that there is a shopkeeper, and the reason that he is not demanding payment is because he sells it to you by deferred payment. So, from this writing, we learn that Kabbalists look at this world as a kind of balance. They say, you can take from this world, like for your livelihood and any fulfillment for every desire you have, but you need to consider that it is as a loan. In other words, you just cannot take it for your own benefit alone. You should learn how to use it for the accomplishment of the goal of the shopkeeper, called nature. Kabbalists write and speak often about nature. Why do they do that? It is because for them nature is not an independent force, but a manifestation of the divine, the upper force, the creator, or so-called shopkeeper. For Kabbalists, the creator and nature have a spiritual connection. And we can also see this in the gematria, the numerical values appointed to the Hebrew alphabet. So we see that the gematria, the numerical value of the word Elohim, creator, is equal to Hateva, nature, the nature, saying that the creator is all of nature. Or said differently, nature is an expression, manifestation of the upper force. Is the creator then like a tree, a waterfall, or a cow? No, of course not. Nature is the force of development. Think about it. Everything develops and grows in nature. If a tree doesn't grow for one day, it is dead. And we humans also grow every day. And I don't refer here to our corporeal possessions or our belly. Nature is the development of our will to receive. We will get into that in a bit. So, the view a Kabbalist has of nature is more spiritual. There's no surprise there. This means that a Kabbalist understands this is something he has attained, that nature, and with it the whole world, the whole universe, was created only for one single goal. That he, the one who created everything, wants to do good to his creations, and that's us. In other words, this world and everything that is in it is for us humans to experience the divine, what Kabbalists address as upper light, his abundance. Differently said, this world is created as a means to come in contact with our Maker, a means to get acquainted, to experience him. Baal Salam says the following about this in his writings of the last generation. He says, there's nothing more natural than coming into contact with one's Maker, for he has made nature. In fact, every creature has contact with his Maker. As it is written, the whole earth is full of his glory, except we don't know or we don't feel it. Actually, one who is awarded contact with him attains only the awareness. It is as though one has a treasure in his pocket, and he doesn't know about it. Along comes another and lets him know what is in his pocket. Now he really has become rich. So friends, you all have become very rich. But remember that there's a shopkeeper, and that we try to accustom ourselves when we receive from the shop how we can bestow to the shop owner. Okay, so how do we open this alleged treasure in our pocket? How can we clothe ourselves with some of that Kabbalistic insight and use it in order to navigate through life? Well, first we need to explain a bit what Kabbalists found and how they observe reality. And by the way, don't forget to put your questions in the chat. They are very important for us. Let's take a look. I see some questions there. Let's share it with you straight away. Okay, what do we have? We have from Emil Nasser, great friend. I already know him. He asks, why does the poem says that the Creator has no name? Doesn't the Torah indicate that the Creator has names like Elohim, Jehovah, Al? Yes, we will talk about it later because the session didn't finish, but he has no name. We cannot, how do they say it? We cannot perceive him. He is concealed for us because with his concealment, he wants to let us attain his greatness. Okay, so a Kabbalist when they speak about, well, in a way, they approach the Kabbalistic formula is as a science. So they say, we know you by your actions. They don't speak about the essence of the Creator. They don't know the essence of the Creator, perhaps after the end of correction. But they don't speak about it in the method we are speaking about, right? There's no guessing. It's all about attainment. So that's why Kabbalists say, we know you by your actions. Okay? If there are more questions later about it, after we draw a little bit, just ask again, Emil. Great question. We have a question from John Jibin. Elohim, Jehovah are situational names and may not perfectly fit the name. Yeah, that's right. So it was for me just to illustrate and it's the same number from the Gematria as Hateva, the nature. So it's just to illustrate that when Kabbalists speak about the creator or the upper force, they also use the word nature. So it's not about, the beautiful nature, the green valleys or whatever. They speak about the force of nature, the development force. Where can we find the poem? For sure, it can be shared. I will share it with you in the link in the chat below. And that's also, by the way, for you. If there are any questions that were not answered or you have any suggestions, I'm a bit early with this remark now, but put them down below. Then I make sure we will use it for our next session. Okay, it's very important that we find a way to connect together. So, last question, Daniel from AZ. I like to understand how to deal with our corporeal desires as they conflict with attaining equivalent form with the Creator. How to change our intention, say I desire to be wealthy. Wow, Daniel, this is a great question, and I think it's a great segue to to show you something about this process, right? So I will not answer it right now. It's still there, so I will get back to it, but let me just first explain some things to you. Okay, here we have the board, the old school board. So my teacher, Rav Dr. Michael Leitman, he taught me the so-called 3-axis model to explain the thought and the whole process of creation. And this 3-axis model, each axis there resembles like a very important part of the process of creation. I will draw them one by one and explain the backgrounds. And hopefully, also through this drawing, hopefully we also will have a little bit more grip in our feelings to connect and to relate to the text of the poem of the Hari. Okay, so it all starts, before I even draw like any axis, it all starts with the thought of creation. Yes, I think we can read it, right? The thought of creation. And the thought of creation, it all starts with this, is to do good to his creations. This is the thought of creation, right? And this happens because you would probably say, also Daniel, yeah, but I don't see any good right now, or I have problems with certain desires. You're totally right. This happens in a world far beyond our perception and feeling, and we call this the world of Ein Sof. The world of Ein Sof. Also named infinity. I put it like this. Right? The world of infinity. It is a situation where the upper resides and where we once were connected in a whole and boundless unity. And when the Ari in his poem speaks about the upper simple light had filled the whole existence, and there was no vacancy such as an empty air, a hollow, but all was filled with that simple boundless light, and it was called the light of Ein Sof. That's this situation. We call it the world of infinity. And Kabbalists explain that, what I said, we have no memory of such a degree, nor was there actually any consciousness. All was just boundless light, filling abundantly the whole reality. And line 1, this is I will draw now the first axis. let's call this 1, is about the process of creating a conscious will to receive. Conscious of receiving and aware of the properties like bestowal and reception. In this line, we designate the realm of the upper. This is what we call, when Kabbalists speak about upper, they mean this. And when they speak about the lower, they mean this. And actually, this is us. And that there's no consciousness or memory means that this is like, we call it a barrier. There's no attainment from our world. So this is our world. Let's say Earth. We just called the 24 hours of Earth. So it's Earth. There's no feeling, memory, any attainment from this place of everything what's happened here. And the upper, we also call this the desire to give, or bestowal. 100% bestowal. And this is the opposite. This is the desire to receive. 100% reception. And Kabbalists explain, and there's a lot of materials about this, it's much too much for this session, but Kabbalists explain that creation was created by his light. That in this degree where we were, and this is also very important, where we were together, this is not the same one like this one, this is axis 1, this is here we were like one with our Creator. There was no separateness, there was not a will to receive. Everything was abundantly, or was light, was wholeness. And that from this light, this upper light, that this light cascaded down to our world, and that this light concealed itself through different worlds to our world where is no light anymore. The light is the quality of the Creator. So this is all light, and it became less and less. It restricted itself. And when we delve into this, if we make like a higher resolution picture of what happens here, then we will find out that Kabbalists determined that this concealment went through different worlds. They call it world, because the Hebrew word for world is olam, and olam comes from the Hebrew root halama, and this means concealment. So when Kabbalists speak about the concealment of the light, they speak about the different worlds through which the light cascaded down from the thought of creation, from the upper, from the quality of bestowal, cascaded down in concealment to our world where there was no light anymore, and everything was the desire to receive. 100% reception. Yeah, so this process of restriction and cascading down resulted in the world as we know it. And perhaps also a bit as an answer to the question of Emile, it's not that he wants to demonstrate his perfection to us, but he wants for us to attain his degree of perfection. That's why he has done this. That's why he concealed himself. If there are questions, then I will hear them gladly, right? Okay, so let's go forward, because this is only the part of creation, right? Actually, I just explained we don't know anything about this. Well, the only thing we know is from Kabbalists, but we don't experience, we don't have a memory. So there's a second axis, and the second axis you can compare it with the development of our world. As we talked earlier, about the 4.5 billion years of development, Kabbalists don't dispute anything science found about the geological development. They only look from a different perspective to reality, because they understand it's part of a process of creation that aims to completion of a certain goal. So also this corporeal axis of our world has spiritual roots, which Kabbalists use to explain cause and consequence and development in this world in general. So when they look at our world, they look at it from the standpoint of development of desire, not so much looking at the events. And to be more specific, the desire to receive, the 100% reception I mentioned here. In this way, they look at this world in different categories of desires. So there are different categories. The first category is the mineral level. And we also saw in the 24-hour development that there's a lot of time passing by before even life occurs, right? And the mineral level is actually the desire in the form of mountains and rocks and sand, and it is the biggest part of the desire and the coarsest, you could say. It has a very strong will, you could say, to maintain its form, its desire. And the second biggest part of creation is the vegetative category of desire. And this contains all the plants in the world. It's still a huge part of creation, but considerably less than the mineral level. And the vegetative has more room also to change shape. It can turn to the sun, it returns to the system by photosynthesis, etc. So it's already more developed desire, you could say. Then the third category, also less in volume than the prior level, but it's that desire is also qualitatively more developed and being more mobile and with also emergent social structures, is the animated level of desires. And finally, the development of us, humans, called the speaking level, where more complex social structures emerge due to also more complex development of desires. And this is what Daniel asked about. So Daniel, pay attention. So this is like the speaking level. And the desires that, well, actually, no, this is really important. We need to bookmark this, because something is very special about this group of desires in the world. The speaking level, actually the desires, you could say, that correspond between the speaking and animate level are the desires for food, right? Animals and us, we have all desires for food, also for shelter and reproduction. However, for us it doesn't end right there, right? because the speaking level distinguishes herself from the animate level not only by the size of the brain, right? Probably you think I would go in that direction. It's not only the size of the brain, but also by having additional desires. Because what distinguishes us from the animate level is that we have desires for wealth, for power, for honor. And when we all have that, then we also have a desire for knowledge, you could say. And sometimes when we don't get fulfillment of these desires, we also get the desires for spirituality. To fill the emptiness we feel in our lives. And these desires are absent on prior levels. It's really something that marks us as humans. And there's another very important distinction about these desires, is that they mainly, or not only exclusively, emerge or surface between people. So these desires if I would be alone, I would want to have some comfort, but I don't want to show off my wealth, right? I don't need a Ferrari or anything. Also honor and power over others. It depends on my relation with other people. So these desires specifically service between people in their relation to one another. And these additional desires show a specific development of the will to receive in the human, also called ego. I put it here. Ego. And not to get confused with ego, what psychologists sometimes use. When Kabbalists speak about ego, they mean the desire to receive with intention for myself. Me, myself, and I. And Kabbalah Salam also has written something about this, and he calls it even the narrow ego. It's like, well, let's read it, what he says. So he says the following about the ego, well, the narrow ego. He says, by these distinctions, I name the two forces that struggle with one another on the path of human development. I will call the positive form an altruistic force, that's the force of bestowal, and I will call the negative force an egoistic force, reception. By the term egoism, I'm not referring to the original egoism. Rather, I'm referring to narrow egoism. That is, the original egoism is nothing but self-love, which is all of one's positive individualistic power of existence. And he says about that, in that respect, it's not at odds with the altruistic force, although it doesn't serve it, right? It is only for me, it is not for the others, but it is still a loving force. However, it is the nature of egoism that the manner of using it makes it very narrow, since it's more or less compelled to acquire a nature of hatred and exploitation of others in order to make one's own existence easier. Also, it's not abstract hatred, but one that appears in acts of abusing one's friend for one's own benefit, growing murkier according to its degrees, such as deceiving, stealing, robbing, murdering. And this is called narrow egoism. And in that respect, it is at odds with and the complete opposite from love of others. It is a negative force that destroys the society. Its opposite is the altruistic force. And this is society's constructive force, since all that one does for one another is only by the altruistic force. So, intense writing, right? But this is the process where we are right now, if you look around you. And this is already what Kabbalah Slump predicted for us as a development. So this axis results into a development of the desire to receive, reaching such heights of the narrow egoism, causing such separation and hatred, that the awakening of the point in the heart emerges. And this awakening in the heart marks actually our need to find our way back. So what's happening here is the awakening of the point in the heart, due to the fact of the development of the ego, the development of the narrow egoism. And you might say, and bear with me just a little bit more, and then we will look at your questions again. You might ask, can I see this process happening as a change in humanity? That we all get these points in the heart, right? And what I can say is that as a person you will feel it for sure. You will ask yourself all kinds of questions about the meaning of life, and you most probably will be drawn to the wisdom of Kabbalah in search of finding answers. But at the same time, there's a big chance that on the outside you will see only development of more uncorrected desire that will be shown to you as suffering. For Kabbalists, this is a sign that the world is in need of more spiritual correction. The development of the points in the heart is a gradual process. If you look at it from the side of nature, you could compare it with processes of development in nature, what we know from this world. Let's look at a clip I developed, which I made especially for us. Let's see. So this is the force of nature, development of nature. And the example is like how a desert becomes a forest. It's a very dry soil, harsh climate, only sand. There are only some tiny sprouts. For the rest, there's no vegetation. But slowly things start to change. It fills with more resilient vegetation, holding the soil, anchoring the soil. Gradually, you see more grasses, hardy weeds, a sense of tenacity, renewal. Let's go to the sea. So now you see the grasses grow, tall grasses, bushes, it stabilizes the soil. Trees, it's changing from barren to vibrant, fast-growing pine trees. Pioneer trees like birch, oaks, radiates resilience for long term, more durable, stable, mature ecosystem. Diverse vegetation, completely different than we started. Birds, So, in this clip, what did we see? We saw how nature gradually pushes towards a new scenery, right? A new landscape. And in our case, nature also pushes us, humans. You can see on the second axis, pushes us to a change of scenery. But this scenery is about how we relate to each other and how we relate to the force of nature. You remember the thought of creation here, right? How we began to do good to his creations. Look around you. And how do you feel most of the times? Are we feeling that we are filled abundantly with goodness? Most probably not, right? You can compare it with the eating of unripe fruit. Like an unripe apple is hard and sour. It's not tasty at all. Does it make the apple bad? No, it just needs more ripening. And that's the same with us. We are in this stage. We are in the last split second of the 24 hours, what Kabbalah Slump calls the last generation, and we are at the point of changing of nature. And you could say that this example of ripening of fruit, that it in our case is actually to a level that we are ready to rise back to our origin, the place where we came from. And this is like the third axis. And the place of origin is, yeah, you know, right? It's the world of Ein Sof. And you should perhaps ask, but why? We came from the world of Ein Sof. Why all this agony? Why this trouble with concealing light and this whole suffering, path of suffering in our world? And then to rejoin is because this time we will come to wholeness. And I call it an accent because it's a different wholeness. It is a wholeness where we attain the quality of the Creator, where we are conscious. And with this, it completes the cycle. It completes the thought of creation. It completes the reason why this whole world with us in it and with desires was created. And this third axis, I also give it a color so we are not getting confused. So these are the colors of the axis. This third axis we call practical Kabbalah. This means, practical Kabbalah means that we follow the advices and the methods from Kabbalists. We walk, literally you could say, in their footsteps. They put down for us in this axis. So we follow the way back up. We climb the spiritual ladder back to our root, the world of Ein Sof. Okay. So, in the meantime, let's look at some questions, right? Let's have the board. So, let's take it from Elma Alberta. Which level does water exist? I don't know what you mean. Water is not... Well, water is used as a metaphor for Bina, for the quality of bestowal. This is probably not what you mean. Perhaps you mean like, does it have a place inside of this realm, right? And water is, well, I would say water is a part of the mineral level. But actually I'm not sure, right? Then we have a question from Kevin. What is the name of the light we draw here? That's a very good question, Kevin, because, and actually your question is already opening up a bit the practical implementation of Kabbalah. And also for the other viewers to explain is that when in this situation where we are separated, because we see different separated bodies, right? And our narrow ego is developing and we want to be even more separated. But if we try to connect anyway with intention for connection and bringing contentment to our Maker, this is what we learn and attain in the study of Kabbalah. What happens when we do it? We draw from the upper world, we draw light onto our efforts. And this light we call the surrounding light, the Or Makif. I hope you can read it, yes. The Or Makif. And this light, Kabbalists explain, and this is also for you to experience, is what changes us, what transforms us. Okay. When did the barrier appear? Well, the barrier appears the moment the vessel could not hold the light anymore. Right? This is cascading down is through interaction of desire and fulfillment of desire. Desire we also call a vessel in Kabbalah, a kli. And the moment the vessel could not hold the light anymore, was totally not in equivalence of form, was not capable of receiving the light because of its oppositeness in quality. It was like heart severed, you could say. And this barrier separates us completely. Okay, let's go. Oh, I need to show the questions. Let's go back to the question from Daniel because I promised to look at it again. So Daniel, you said, I like to understand how to deal with our corporeal desires as they conflict with attaining equivalent form to the Creator. How to change our intention. Okay, there are several things here in your question. So when we speak about the process of correction in Kabbalah, we don't change our desire. Your desire remains, it only grows. But what we change, what we offer for correction, is our intention, how to use the desire. Because the Creator wants for us to enjoy and to be fulfilled abundantly. How would we do it if we don't have a desire to receive? So it is a functional part of the thought of creation, to receive from the Creator. Only if we don't have the intention which makes us in dvikut, in adhesion with the Creator, then we cannot receive from Him. So that's why we need to change our intention in order to bestow, and then we can receive from Him. Yeah, so there's no problem with whatever desire you have. The only thing we focus on in the study and what we are asking for is to change our intention. Okay. Another question from Patrick. Shalom from India. Well, shalom. How can we be connected with divinity? Is Kabbalah means meditation, same as Buddha? No, it's not the same. What we do in Kabbalah is that we understand that this process is a process of development from nature, from the Creator, in order for us to come to a request to Him to help us. We need to come to such degrees with our separation and hatred that we ask the Creator to help us with our nature, to change our nature. So, for Kabbalists, if we want to hasten the process and not take like another 1,000,000 years for this process, but we want to come to a conclusion in our lives, right? In this life, we want to return to Ein Sof. They actually promote the growth of the ego. They say we need to grow our ego, because the bigger the ego, the bigger our request for the Creator to help us. And they explain to us that this is what the Creator wants from us, that we ask Him to change us. Because the Creator gave us this will to receive, and now we're going to ask Him to give us a will to bestow instead. Kabbalists call this "my sons defeated me." Like we transcended our original point of creation. We became more than we were in the beginning. And this is what the Creator wants for us. Okay. So, friends, oh wow, time is flying. We need to go forward, because I have some things I like to share with you. Because what we need to know, and that is the thing I like to emphasize here, is that we are part of an integral system. And this means that each one of us is operated by this system. And that a change in the individual behavior or the individual correction will also have influence on the whole system. You could say that each one of us resembles like a small sesame seed that through our individual corrections induces a change in the whole system, like a ripple. Let's look at the text. This is the Nerigos we had. So, what says Baal Salam in the Arvut article? He says, each and every mitzvah that each person from Israel performs, so each correction that someone does, and not like from the nation Israel, but who has this awakened point in the heart. So, each correction that each person from Israel performs in order to bring contentment to one's Maker, and not for any reward and self-love, helps to some extent with the development of all the people in the world. This is so because it's not done at once, but by slow, gradual development, until it increases to such a degree that they can shift all the people in the world to the desired refinement. And this is what our sages call shifting the balance to merit, meaning that the desired weight of refinement has been achieved. They compared it to weighing on a scale, where the shifting of the balance is the achieved of the desired weight. So, these are very serious conditions when we try to understand the implications. It is just like the clip we saw about the transformation of landscape in nature. So there are people who are more ready to comply with nature, and there are those who are less ready. Baal Salam states here that anyone who to some extent tries to annul the will to receive in order to bring contentment to the Creator helps with the development of all the people in the world. In our days, what Baal Salam calls the last generation, right? In the last part of the 4.5 billion years, we have reached readiness. And we have received all the explanations from Baal Salam in his various articles and books. And it is up to us now to understand that every action we make adds to the favorable balance of the entire world. In the integral system, nothing happens to me individually without being felt by everyone. And at the end of correction, Kabbalists explain, what we did for everyone will be revealed. We will have a common understanding and a common sense, and all of us will be able to feel this entire system together. Each one will be equivalent to the entire system. Okay, I promise, right? To read the poem again. But this time we do it with everything we heard and experienced in this session. And perhaps this feels like a lot right now and leaves you right now with questions or confusions. What I would say is that let's try to connect to a feeling of gratitude. Connect to the thought that you received so many things from the shop of life and that you want to know how you can repay. How to use it for the sake of bestowal to others. That you wish that everything you received could be somehow used for the advantage of everyone. And you don't have to come up with a solution or an action plan, but just connect with your inner desires and feelings. Okay, let's look at the clip again. Behold, that before the emanations were emanated and the creatures were created, the upper simple light had filled the whole existence. And there was no vacancy, such as an empty air, a hollow, but all was filled with that simple, boundless light. And there was no such part as head or end, but everything was one, simple light, balanced evenly and equally, and it was called the light of Ein Sof. Infinity. And when upon his simple will came the desire to create the worlds and emanate the emanations, to bring to light the perfection of his deeds, his names, his appellations, which was the cause of the creation of the worlds, then the Ein Sof restricted himself in his middle point, precisely at the center, and he restricted that light and drew far off to the sides around that middle point. And there remained an empty space, an empty air, a vacuum, precisely from the middle point, and that restriction was equally around that empty middle point, so that the space was evenly circled around it. And after the restriction, when the vacant space remained empty, precisely in the middle of the light of Ein Sof, a place was formed where the emanations, creations, formations, and actions might reside. And then, from the light of Ein Sof, a single line hung down from above, lowered into that space, and through that line, he emanated, created, formed and made all the worlds. Prior to these four worlds, there was one light of Ein Sof, whose name is One, in wondrous hidden unity. And even in the angels closest to him, there is no force, no attainment in the Ein Sof, as there is no mind of a created that could attain him, for he has no place, no boundary, no name. Okay, everyone okay? Let's summarize a bit. We are in the last generation, the last split second of development of the world as we know it. And most probably you are here because your point in the heart has awakened or begins to awaken. So where to go from here? What are clues we can take from this session? Or how to navigate through the turbulent phase we appear to be in? and how to be aligned with the plan of nature, the plan from the Creator. And moreover, how can we develop a kind of calm that originates from having faith in the upper guidance? And I understand now, answering these questions, big words, big promises. But this is what each one of us has potentially in his or her pocket. This is the treasure that Baal Salam speaks about. And development of nature as a spiritual system is telling us through many feedbacks and sufferings that it is time for us to change, time for correction, one way or the other. So again, what can we take? What can I take practically from this session? I made an overview, and which is not limited in any way, but just for you to have a beginning. I assembled 5 directives or suggestions from the Kabbalists to implement and practice and guide you, helping you navigating through these troubled times of change. And you just choose what you think fits you in order to navigate and add to the spiritual development of the world. So, meaning of life. Well, it's beautiful music. Let's keep it. The program of life. Try to digest what we spoke about in this session. Look at it again. Try to find answers in the authentic materials. Try to understand the laws of spiritual nature. Bestowal above reception. And which part do you want to represent in the transformation of the scenery? Are you the grass that prepares for others? Or are you perhaps the big tree that blossoms later? And remember that all the fruit is good, some just isn't ripe yet. The power of intention. Think about being aligned with laws of nature, both in thoughts and intentions, as much as you can. Because everything can be done. If there is a force that created this whole world, and for this specific purpose of correction of desire, for sure this force can change our reality in an instant. We only need to become more aware and ask the force of nature, which is the Creator, to help us and to develop faith that helps us to want to be in our next spiritual degree. When you start implementing the exercises from Kabbalists and studying authentic materials, you will discover that your suffering will change from more external sufferings like blows in relations or work, health, wars, to more internal sufferings. Sufferings like how can I bestow? And the lack of being able will pain you, will make you suffer. It's like going to the eye of the storm. And it is our nature, we have to suffer to get into gear, to do anything, else we won't move. So we have to suffer anyway. This is how we were designed. But with this knowledge, with this understanding, we can change our suffering to be purposeful, for the sake of correction. Think about it. Think about it. We prepare our next degree, and we try to do it in the most conscious and effective way. And I advise strongly, if you want that you engage in studying Kabbalah, to read authentic texts from Kabbalists, connect with friends, people that also study Kabbalah, and find an authentic teacher that guides you. It is our connection that makes the change. Remember the scale with the sesame seeds, right? When you bring yourself or others closer to each other in love, connection and unity, you and them already become closer to the Creator, and all of humanity for that matter. None else besides Him. I don't think how could we end differently. None else besides Him. relate to the Creator as the only force, even if it looks so not as the good that does good. And remember these Kabbalistic words, that the Creator doesn't put an obstacle before a blind person. We receive always exactly what is needed for our spiritual development. And this is our free choice, to join the plan of nature willingly. Just open your pocket and look for the treasure. I'm convinced that implementing these advices will help you towards finding more calmness and purposeful navigation and guidance in life. So, friends, if I look at the time, it's time to conclude. Because we began this session by asking, can the wisdom of Kabbalah provide insights that lead to calm and confidence? And can those insights help me in navigating through life, especially in these troubled times? We've talked about the laws of nature, that even how messed up the world looks right now, that it is part of a bigger plan, a bigger goal, and that we have an opportunity, through the study of Kabbalah, to become an aware and active part of this plan. That each one of us has a powerful beacon inside, and when we connect together, we not only lit and power this beacon, but we benefit the whole world with it. I hope this session not only provided context and insights for you how to navigate through life, but that this session also filled you with an alert calmness and confidence that can only come from the root of your soul. Please leave your comments below what you think of this session and what you want to be revealed for next time. You will have all the influence, and I promise I'll take your suggestions at heart. For now, we need to conclude. You are warmly invited to join the Q&A after this session. The link for the Q&A follows after the tune. Thank you for joining. Check out next episodes of Kabbalah Explained Simply. My name is Anne Pier, and I wish you all the best and looking forward meeting you next time.